Absolutely not. My exact words to them were categorically, I do not want to put a do not resuscitate order in place.
You're here to talk about your grandmother.
That's correct.
We know that your grandmother sadly passed away on the 4th of November 2020. You subsequently ascertained that there was a do not resuscitate notice in relation to your gran.
That's correct.
Can you just explain how you came by that information?
We had heard that there was a possibility that there was a do not resuscitate order. After my grandmother had died, we'd heard from the solicitors that there was talk that there was a do not resuscitate order in my grand's file, but nobody had ever seen it, so we didn't know the full facts of it. But when I actually sat with the inquiry team to give this statement, my solicitor produced the do not resuscitate order, and it had my name on it, and it was dated on the 2nd of November. And sorry? I've got a copy of it, but it's in block capital letters with my name.
So in other words, not your normal signature?
Not my signature at all.
Was the possibility of a DNR notice ever discussed with you by the care home?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And could the care home have understood from the discussion that they had with you that you might be authorizing a DNR notice for your grandmother?
Absolutely not. My exact words to them were categorically, I do not want to put a do not resuscitate order in place.
You tell us in paragraph 65, which is a lengthy paragraph about this, that the DNR is incomplete.
Yes.
How is it incomplete beyond the point that you've just clarified with His Lordship about your signature?
There's a section in it that asks if the patient is aware of the do not resuscitate order being in place, and there's a box to tick yes or no, and neither box is ticked.
You have ascertained that the sedative that she was given is one called Midazolam.
That's correct.
And we've heard about Midazolam from other witnesses, and I think it is associated with end-of-life care.
She was also given 2 other drugs that were part of an end-of-life protocol.
And what's your reaction to learning that?
I'm very angry and very upset about it. From the medical notes that I've read, the GP had called on the 3rd, the day before she died, to check on her condition, and the care home had actually said that she had improved slightly from the day before and that her observations had got better. The GP had actually said that whilst they had got better, they were still a bit poor, and would she perhaps benefit from going to hospital. The care home had stated that us as a family didn't want her to go to hospital, and that my grandmother didn't want to go to hospital. But none of this is anything that we had said. We never once said that we didn't want to go to hospital. Sorry, I'd always said the exact opposite. And if my grandmother had said that she didn't want to go to hospital, then I, as power of attorney, could have overruled that. Also, it said at this point that there was a DNR in place in the medical notes, which again, I've only had sight of recently, so I wouldn't have known that at the time. So the care home staff said no, the family wanted to remain at the care home, and the doctor said, fair enough, we'll leave things as they are. We will give you these drugs, and it was the Midazolam and the 2 other drugs, which are part of an end-of-life protocol, just in case, was the terminology used in the medical notes. But there wasn't specific instructions to administer them at that point. So I don't know at what point the care home chose to administer those drugs, but it must have been at some point between the afternoon of the 3rd and the early hours of the 4th.
And just to be clear, you weren't consulted in any
Not
way
at
about
all.
that?
No.
You also refer to an undercurrent of, and you say sometimes, neglect and abuse in care homes.
Yes.
Now, that could be seen as a general comment, or it could be seen as a specific comment. What are you wanting to convey by that?
I do feel that it is a specific in this case and a general comment that there are things that go that happen within care homes, whether it's neglect or in some cases some forms of abuse, and unfortunately the pandemic meant that went severely unchecked because all that was in the care home were staff members and the residents. There were no family just dropping in every now and again, meaning that things happened that wouldn't normally have happened. I think this means that, in my view, the entire care home system needs to be looked at. When we're talking about lessons to be learned, there needs to be the fact that I said to the care inspector that about 3 staff members looking after 26 residents who had dementia and all sorts of care needs, and they felt that was acceptable. I don't understand that. I think there needs to be some restrictions on staffing levels. There need to be more requirements with regards to training of staff members in care homes, and there needs to be some regulation on record keeping. All the records in the care home my Gran was in, certainly, and a lot of other ones that I've looked at, are all kept by handwritten notes. And in this day and age, there's hardly any institutions that are like that. Everything's digital, so I don't understand why care homes can't be the same.
No. And I think your particular concern is that you, in the case of your Gran, weren't afforded the opportunity to go into the care home where you could have been a check on what might have been happening within the care home. Is that right?
That's correct. I think if this was anything like this was to ever happen again, then I don't see why relatives should ever be locked out of care homes. If staff members can come and go to their own homes and supermarkets and other places, then why would it pose more of a risk for relatives to do exactly the same? Relatives, I think, would take much more care to protect their loved ones if they're coming in to visit them. So I don't understand why relatives were ever locked out of care homes.